vacationing, a word that many parents refuse to use if they are bringing their children with them. Some of them use the word trip. And what better way to take a trip with your family than to victimize some very close friends and take them with you?
I'm not sure any vacation with kids is easy, but the beach kind of seems like a great place for the kids to just take a breath.
Yes, take a breath if you can actually get to your destination.
Has one ever really started a vacation without going to urgent care first? I know I haven't.
And also this detail. We're gonna be late on our departure because
We have to bring
Jerry. And if you do decide to put your luggage on a hitch in the back of your vehicle, remember there are settings that need to be changed. These new technologies are so complicated.
Hey, did it again.
What is happening? What is happening?
Let's just keep doing it. I can figure out how to turn it off, but I think we just keep getting with. Hey, there it goes again.
That being said, we finally made it on the road to our budget-friendly 2025 vacation. Of course, we did get a freshly cracked windshield thanks to some flying debris, and we did have to stop at every gas station on the way, including Buc-ee's. But then we made it to what really was a free ecological dream. So we were able to meet jellyfish and bonnethead sharks and stingrays and of course frogs. Frogs are not funny, but they are free. They have a pet, right?
He jumped.
So, we're just...
You know what's also free, but not funny, are crabs. And you can go crab hunting at night, which is another crowd favorite. But I will say, they do traverse sideways at night.
He's lost. He's not.
And you know what they say, it's much better in a village. So as I already told you, we did bring our very good friends, the Culberson family, to our vacation.
Our kids, we know that they can get along and hang out more than just, a set period of time. We've been around each other enough to know, like, all right, Liz and I can do this. Our kids get along, the husbands get along. This has to work, right? And if you're gonna spend time away from home and spend the money to go, it's gotta be with people that you wanna spend the time with and that you know are gonna have a good time with you.
You also have to yell at my kids for me if I'm not there.
Yes.
So aside from the very apparent animal abuse, it's all about the experience and trying new adventures. It doesn't have to be grand and it doesn't have to be terribly expensive. In fact, we sat down in this episode with Meagan Wristen. She has been a travel blogger long before the days of trendy travel blogs. She works on Instagram and YouTube and has been doing it for decades.
I started a travel blog before a travel blog was a thing.
You've been to how many countries, you said?
I think I've been to 38.
We asked her about family vacations before and after the pandemic. If you look at some of the hotel prices, they're up double digits prior to what they look like in 2020. Gas prices are up. Eating out is expensive. So how do you maximize the dollar when you're traveling with, let's say, 3 kids under the age of 10? She's taken her kids to more than 30 countries, and she started doing really easy trips. She used to just take them over to friends' homes. She says it's a better education than they could ever get in the classroom. So you'll hear from her after the full interview, as I mentioned, with my good friend Sarah. My first very, very really hard-hitting question is, how was your fall break?
It was really fun.
Okay, so this is like we talked about this segment before we recorded it because there's like 83 million families according to the US Census. So, and if you go to public school, then you have a fall break. So what parents are struggling with now is that there's a fall break, and then there's like a winter break and a holiday break, and then there's a spring break, and there's a summer break, and then there's a digital learning day, and then there's a teacher learning day, and there's a self-improvement day, and there's a mental health week. So as a mother, you're trying to balance all of these breaks. Yay. So how did you come to the conclusion, like, all right, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the beach?
That's kind of been our go-to, I would say. I feel like when we do have these breaks, we want to try and keep it as easy as possible. I'm not sure any vacation with kids is easy, but um, the beach kind of seems like a great place for the kids to just take a breath. They've been in school, they've been sitting in classrooms, they've been doing all these sports, and it's kind of nice to just go to the beach and let them run around and kind of not care about anything for a few days.
Keep it simple, right? What is it? Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. Okay. With what
Yes.
is it like? And this is a question I should ask myself because like we always compare ourselves to other families, and you and I both know that some people will take fancy cruises or international, or they'll go to Hawaii, and we're gonna go to the beach and we're gonna plan it 3 days in advance.
Yeah.
But it turned out okay, right?
It really did. I mean, literally, I think we booked our place the day of. I know you guys had yours booked for a little while, but ours was just kind of like, let's see how the weeks go leading up to it, make sure nobody's sick and everybody's in one piece. And then we booked it and we were an hour behind you guys and got down there and it was
Don't
amazing.
worry, we still had to go to urgent care and showed up with a cracked windshield, but we made it. But I think my point is like remove all of the pressures and the expectations because that was one of our favorite trips. The also thing, the what I want to ask you is I also noticed, and I don't know if we did this as kids, is that there's a lot more people traveling in groups. So know what you're getting into, but we loved going with one other family and I thought that it was a little bit more intimate. Not that it's not fun to go with 30 or 40 people,
Right.
but it was I would just give that advice to parents that I would really open up to the idea of going with another family cuz it was easier than I anticipated.
Yes. And our kids, we know that they can get along and hang out more than just a set period of time. We've been around each other enough to know, like, all right, Liz and I can do this, our kids get along, the husbands get along, this has to work, right? And if you're going to spend time away from home and spend the money to go, it's got to be with people that you want to spend the time with and that are going to have a good time with you.
You also have to yell at my kids for me if I'm not there. Well,
Yes.
what I was telling Megan about JR, I didn't mention. I should let me just say about my youngest is that she told me she's like, "Oh, I travel with an inflatable life vest," and I was like, "You know what? I saw a kid on the beach with a leash. I don't do leashes. I probably need a leash, like for me, like because I wander." But you know what I was going to ask you? Do you think I should invest in an inflatable life vest for my youngest because it'll prevent him from breaking something? And that's a legit question for you.
I mean, it can't hurt.
I
You
don't
did
think so.
you did have one in a cast who was trying to boogie board on a skimboard.
Yeah.
It was awesome, and
You know
only an
what's really
OA kid
cool
can do that. It was
is if
amazing.
you break something in another zip code, you can see what type of cast they give.
Yes, maybe it's the same one, but they are little athletic children that can do anything. They amazed me all week. I was just like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. But Dane and Jr. can just do anything, and Claire can literally catch any animal and be fine.
Ew, yeah. I'm sorry. Those crabs, I'm okay. And also the frog. So, my last question, speaking of, so I was under the interpretation because I am, but I was an adult at 13. You have a 13-year-old daughter who obviously I think hung the moon, but I have seen other 13-year-olds and I don't know what you're doing to keep her engaged, but to see a 13-year-old not on her phone during a family vacation, we were with you for almost the entire week. I mean, that really comes from parenting, and you've obviously set the tone from the get go. And I think there's a lot of people who are hungry for their 13-year-olds to not look at their phone. So, how did you get there? And I know it's kind of a deep question, and we're talking about a vacation, but I mean, it's serious because I have a almost 13-year-old. And if she's walking around with her nose in a cell phone, I'm not taking her to the beach.
It's very true. And now that you say that, she really did a great job on this vacation without really Charlie and I having to say too much to her. And I think that's just from, you know, constantly parenting in that way, and not giving up when it gets hard, or you're going through a hard time with your almost teenager over the phones and the screens, is being consistent with your parenting, even on vacation, even on weeknights, Friday nights. We try really hard to not, let her slip into this is my phone, this is what I'm doing. No, we are a family, and we are going to go on vacation, and we are going to do really fun things, and you're going to be present. And the kids had a blast. I mean, fishing the way they did, catching crabs, going to get ices and dinner, and just playing and being kids and riding bikes. Like, they do find joy in that. You just have to allow them to see it and be a part of it and be present.
Well, also, like, we're awesome. You know what I mean?
We really are. We're really fun parents.
I kind of agree.
I want to go on vacation, with Charlie.
I
Younger.
want to be with me, and I want to be with you.
Same.
So, what makes me sad that our conversation is over, but I love you with all my heart, and thank you for vacationing with us and coming on today. And like I said, I can't wait to raise. So I hope that you stay friends with me.
You're doing a great job. You do
Thanks.
not have those children, so we are here.
The next one. Thank you, Sarah. You're
Love
the
you.
best.
Love you, love you.
Love you. So all of us are trying to have a great vacationing experience. We just don't want to spend a ton of money. There are some things that are clearly higher from about a year ago. Airfare and the price of eating out. It could be why our family decided to opt for that Airbnb. And this headline too. The White House on Friday touted a drop in gas prices as evidence of President Trump's energy agenda taking effect after AAA noted it was the lowest price per gallon in 4 years. So our goal, which still sounds pretty high, was to keep a beach vacation for 3 very hungry and very active children and 2 very hungry and very active adults under $4,500. It wasn't perfect, but we were fairly close. We opted to drive and not fly. That way we avoid that 3% increase in airfare in year to date. And we also capitalized on those fairly low gas prices, down 7% from last year. We also skipped as much as we could eating out at restaurants. We did a huge grocery haul. It would take care of at least 2 meals a day. And I will say, it's hard to keep my children under 3 to 4 meals a day. So we did our best to do a huge grocery haul for the trip. So now you've heard about all the ways that we maximized a destination that was relatively close to home. So now you're going to hear from Meagan. As I mentioned, she's been traveling for decades. She's traveled to well over 30 countries and with her kids. How do you maximize the time you have with your kids and take them all over the world on a relatively low budget? Keeping 3 kids entertained, that I just did a 6-hour road trip, and it was we cut off screens until the last hour, which really it sounds good on paper, but how do you entertain kids for 5 hours? I mean, I just did it. It was actually kind of painful.
Okay, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, screen free, screen free." I completely disagree. I mean, as long as they're not watching TV at home all the time, as long as your child isn't already a screen addict, showing them a movie in the car is not that big of a deal. It's 6 hours. That's 3 movies. You'd be surprised how easy it is to keep them glued in. Like, say you started the Harry Potter series. They've never seen Harry Potter. You could just start a series that they would be super into. They can watch half of it on the way there, half of it on the way back. But honestly, I think a lot of it depends on the age of the child. I mean, if it's a toddler, I used to love those busy books with like the zippers and the snaps, and so I would give my kid like a brand new toy they'd never seen before, and that would keep them occupied for a surprisingly long amount of time.
Well, and we have all those little fidgets now. So we did the same thing. Like I'll go to the dollar store. I'm sure this will get into the mommy plastics war, right? Like we could do a whole nother segment about how I just flooded my kids with microplastics, but I got them the little mini tackle boxes and I fill it with snacks and then I get the fidgets. And you're right. We kind of do 30-minute increments and then we go ahead and do the movies. My question to you is with the younger ones, like you said, it depends on the ages. So my 10-year-old would be locked into a Harry Potter series, but my 5-year-old wouldn't. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I mean, you could show the movie to one and have the other one, hand the other one a book or hand them a new toy or I know some parents do activity books in the car. I didn't necessarily like all the pieces going everywhere, so that's something to keep in mind. Like when you are picking out something for them to do, don't hand them something that's got 100 pieces that you are going to pick up one by one at the end of the road trip. So
Yeah, because then you're going to be so. It's like the worst part of vacation is when you get home, you have to clean out the car.
I think little kids love to be like engaged with and talked to. So that's a great time to do a road trip game. Do the ABC game if they know their ABCs. They can look for a word along the highway that starts with an A, starts with a B. You can play I Spy. I mean, there's lots of little games that you can play to keep a younger kid engaged, and they love the attention.
Megan, your observations, you've done this, like you said, I mean, from being a military brat, from traveling, from living in Panama City Beach to living in Las Vegas to having kids and really being a travel blogger before it was cool to be a travel blogger. What have you learned, especially the journey of 3 kids?
Grace. Give yourself a lot of grace. Just because you planned out this itinerary, this amazing next level itinerary, and you're going to see the Grand Canyon, or you're going to do this amazing hike, and the reality is they're kids, and the day may not go the way you thought it was going to go. Instead of having 2 or 3 stops, you might be at 5 or 6 stops. So everything got delayed, delayed, delayed. So I think a big old dose of grace, first of all, and then have a plan, but remember it's a loose plan. I used to also love to kind of have like a day off where maybe nothing was planned right in the middle, like day 3 of the road trip. And that's where if we missed something, we could add it back. Or if we found out about something, somebody gave us a recommendation in our new destination, we could go check it out. You can only push a kid so far, especially if they're off schedule. And even I know a lot of parents they're like, oh, I'll drive all night. That way the child sleeps and they're still on schedule the next day. But now you're not on schedule. Now you're going to be cranky. That doesn't help anybody. So, I mean, I get the idea in theory, but you just do the best you can on any given day.
You know why I love that is last week we took a vacation. It was with one other family, and we were trying so perfectly to get everything ready, right? We were trying to order groceries and get it all set. And the next morning, it was almost like everybody was tense, and really the kids were just playing on the beach, but the adults were just trying to digest the fact that we had gotten there and that someone didn't get this from the grocery store and that we don't have the right reservation. And it was like we really did have to just give ourselves some grace. There's so much pressure, it feels like, on parents to make these experiences so great for our kids. Is it that we're too dependent on their happiness? Why is it? Why do we put that so much
Well,
pressure?
I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations put on mothers. You go on Pinterest and you see this incredible like, oh, look at this magical experience I created for my child, or you go on Instagram. But remember, this is all curated. Like they worked really hard to make it look like that. That didn't just happen. So again, like as long as your kids are happy and they're having a great time, like they're going to remember the time that they spent with you, the time they spent with their friends. A kid that's 8 years or younger, they're not going to remember a lot of the trip anyway. That's just the reality. So if it's a disaster, they're not going to remember. So
And also, our definition of a disaster and then their definition of a disaster are two hugely different things.
exactly, it might be the best day they've ever had.
Ever had. I mean, I remember I travel alone a lot with my kids. My husband is a former Major League Baseball player, but he still works in the industry. So, once you start doing it, you don't need to really travel with someone. The kids are well-oiled machine. They've all been traveling since they were 6 weeks old. And I remember taking them just this season down to Miami, and it was a really fancy hotel. And one of the things that I don't do is I don't put my kids in fancy hotels. I just don't. I really feel like if they want to have nice things, some days they can have, someday they can earn it and have it themselves, but they can sleep perfectly well in a reasonable hotel. But anyways, we stayed at a really nice hotel, and their behavior was abhorrent, right? They were like climbing crystal structures in these gorgeous, 5-star resort. And I was so mad at them flying home from Miami. And then my son turned to me and he was like, that was the best vacation we've ever gone on. And I sort of looked around like, What vacation were you on? So I think we have this vision in our heads that it has to be laid out and that their behavior has to be perfect too. When really they're still kids.
Hmm. And they're learning. And when you're bringing them into a new experience, like they're absorbing everything around them. They might be like, you don't want them to touch something. I took my niece to an art museum yesterday. I'm like, don't touch, don't touch, don't touch. And I was like, we shouldn't be here. She's 4. This was a bad idea. Let's go. And instead we went to a nearby playground. So, that kind of goes back to expectations. I had this vision in my mind because she loves to do art. We'd go to the art museum, we'd do art, and no, that didn't work out at all. So, um, nothing with a little redirection and reassessing the plans each day as the day evolves.
So I would assume that your vacations have run the gamut. You said that you've done road trips, you've flown with the kids, you've taken them all over the world, international, local. What advice would you give parents? Because I mean, I don't really, like you said, I don't remember all the vacations that we took as a kid. I had a great childhood, but I don't remember quite as many breaks as our kids have now. I could do a comparison and print out, a calendar from the 90s and then look at it now. But what advice would you give parents who are saying, I want to get my kids used to traveling, but it's intimidating?
You know what? Start with a small day trip. Take a day trip to a local, maybe there's a nearby national park or national forest where you could do some hiking or a scavenger hunt, or, maybe drive a couple of hours to the beach and see how it goes, see how they do in the car. Like, there's nothing wrong with being intimidated by it, but really, I mean, things go wrong at home too. So, I think things are always going to go wrong. That's just the reality of the situation. So just do it. That would probably be my advice, is just do it. And if it does feel intimidating, maybe road trip too. When my kids were little, one of the things I would do is I would plan a road trip around where some of our friends lived. And so we would end up staying the night at a friend's house. Well, that's a lot less pressure than a hotel. And then their friends are there and they play and they blow off steam. And I'm having a nice time. I might be enjoying a glass of wine, catching up with my good friend that I haven't seen in a year. So there are different ways to, like, maybe work a trip to where you're getting something out of it. They're having a good time and it's just less stressful for you.
So what was your favorite when you had these 3 young kids, before, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably were traveling long before the days of what is now an Airbnb or a VRBO.
Yes.
So now when I'm looking at all these breaks that our kids have, I would opt for like an Airbnb because I love to be able to do their laundry, or I really don't want to pay for 3 meals because they want to eat lunch and they want to eat breakfast. And if you just buy peanut butter and some slices of bread, that's really wholly cheaper than going down to a gift shop or getting something for, I mean, what was it like to travel before we had those? And then was it life-giving for you when those resources started to pop up?
You know what? I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Like I said, we used to do a lot of friends' houses, so that made it a lot easier. I would, when we would head off to on a long road trip, I would pack, maybe we'd have breakfast in the car and lunch on the car. So that day I had 2 meals planned in the car, and that kind of kept them occupied along the way too. And then dinner that night was at a restaurant, but it took off the pressure of having to stop 3 times just to eat, 3 restaurant experiences where it may or may not go well. So that was one easy way. I also sometimes would stop at a playground and we would have a picnic. So again, it's food I already made, and then we would eat it at the park and they could run around and blow off steam. We used to do Disney a lot when they were little because it's so easy. It's so set up for families, but it's very expensive. And so I would go to Target or Walmart and just buy prepackaged food from the deli, like maybe pre-made sandwiches or pre-made salads. And then we would again have a picnic inside the parks, even though it's a theme park. So
Do you get involved in the Dollywood versus Disney World debate?
you know what? I haven't been to Dollywood. I got to go to Gatlinburg and I loved it. So I keep thinking I've got to get back to Tennessee and do more in the area because it was lovely. But no, I haven't experienced it.
I mean, I'm going to make a very, and this has nothing to do with political beliefs because, as you know, we're trying to create a show that's very much down the middle. But I am a Team Dollywood, and I'm very open about it. And I actually have a strike, really for no particular reason. Nothing against Mickey Mouse, but it's just that I really have an imaginary friend in Dolly, and her parks are so clean and so fantastic, and we go every year to the point that now I've asked my husband if we can go twice a year, and that's been shut down. But can you tell us about your experiences, like when you started the Airbnb started popping up? I know I'm going back to this, but to me, I can't imagine traveling without it with kids.
Yeah, so I did love it when Airbnb and VRBO popped up. That was a new experience. I mean, I used to look for timeshare rentals. You can get a timeshare without getting a timeshare. You can rent somebody else's that they can't use. And so then you were in like a condo situation with the washer and dryer. But then with the rise of Airbnb, you could rent an entire house. So I would look for one with a pool. That's a great way to spend a hot afternoon. And again, the washer dryer. Everybody's got their own rooms. Everybody sleeps better. If kids are fighting, you can spread them out. You can bring more stuff with you, or you can bring less stuff because the house might have the crib you need, the high chair you need. A lot of companies do. You can rent baby equipment. And you can have it delivered to your Airbnb. So everything you need's there. Like you need a bouncing chair or the bouncing saucer to keep your baby happy. You can rent one. So yeah, they're pretty great.
You know, one of the things I was talking to my girlfriend about when we went on this last trip is I said, our kids are so fun. We have all of our kids are under the age of 13, and even the 13-year-old who is not my daughter is just so wildly pleasant and present and not on her phone, and it was really lovely. But I kept thinking to myself, I don't want this to end. I really don't want them to get any older. And I would look at even smaller children on the beach and their floaties, and I would think to myself, we don't need floaties anymore. And I was almost grieving that part of motherhood. So what would you say to someone like me? I mean, I can't think that it could get better. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I've had the best vacations with my kids in recent years, right? Because they're older and they want to go walk around maybe some of the museums, and they don't need snacks and they don't need all of these things. What would you say to a mom who's got younger kids?
You know what? So I've heard so many people complain about teenagers. I completely disagree. My teenagers have been so much fun. So it's always going to be fun. You're going to enjoy your kids at every single age, and it's going to be different experiences. So I know right now my sister has younger kids and it's so much work, but it is so fun. But they get so much easier. I don't have to pick out their clothes. They can pack their own suitcase. I don't have to, they can take care of so much themselves. And on a road trip, one of them can drive, two of them can drive. Like we can go twice as far because we have twice as many drivers now. So I think it's so much fun at every age.
What age is best?
What age is the best?
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I will say, I don't know that it's better when they're teenagers, but it's easier. Everything's easier. Like you are not physically having to do so much. I just remember as a mom with young children, I would be sweating because I'm just like working so hard and keeping track of three kids, and one's running this way, one's going that way. And it was just like, it was awesome. And I love them so much at every age, but it's so much easier when they're just like super chill. Nobody's running away. Nobody's mad at me. Like, a toddler screams at you in the theme park because they're overstimulated. You're like, why am I doing this to myself? So
Yeah.
then when you've got a teenage daughter and she loves to just hang out at the pool with you and order drink and food and you just chill out, it's just so easy. It's fun.
Yeah, and like you said, you probably get to experience more. I mean, like I said, we're still doing these sort of like driving distance vacations, but I do want to experience vacations with them. Like I want to take them overseas. Certainly, I mean, I know that's going to be more costly. So how do you navigate that when you graduate to what would be an easier vacation? You said you'd go to friends' houses, or you would find the timeshare, and then you would find the Airbnb. But let's just say that I have teenagers now, and one of my sons just wants to be a pilot. And let's say he wants to go to the Air Force Academy. He wants to go to Colorado or wherever it is. And how do you take those next steps to take those more advanced vacations? Because it sounds to me like those would be really expensive.
You know what? Every town's going to have free activities. So you kind of have to like weigh out the cost. So let's say you went to Colorado Springs and you want to go to Pax Peak. I mean, you can rent a car and go to Pax Peak yourself, or you could pay and take the train up. Then you can go to Seven Falls and hike the Seven Falls. Again, it's hiking, it's free. So, but then maybe you pop up to Denver and you want to do some of the paid activities they have in Denver, or you want to go up into the mountains like Beaver Creek. I mean, which is a luxury resort in the Vail area, and you decide to go horseback riding. That's incredibly expensive. But then the next day you can do a hike on the mountain. That's free. So I think you figure out what your budget is and you work backwards. And so, work in as many free activities as you need to. I mean, depending on the destination. I mean, if you're going to a destination like Colorado, I mean, the outdoor experience in Colorado is vast. I mean, you could do something every day, probably, that's free, and it would be beautiful and scenic.
Okay, so let me pick your brain. Let's just say you've got kids under the age of 10. We'll start with that. Give me your top 5 destinations I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot without a lot of prep. But, for younger kids, and I'll ask you probably for older ones next. But in all of you've done this, right? For now, what did you say, 20 years? Your top 5 destinations.
Are these road trip destinations or any destination?
Let's do road trip. Let's do road trip, and I'll pick your brain on international.
I think if they're under 10, you're looking at the map where you live and you're sticking 8 hours or under. So I think a lot of it has to depend on where you are. So when we lived in Panama City Beach, we would road trip to Orlando and do Disney World. That was a 5-hour drive. That was plenty for a 3rd grader, a kindergartner, and a toddler. I mean, you can't push them much further than that without maybe breaking it up into, well, we'll spend one day here and then we'll get to Orlando, something like that. From Dallas, you could do a little road trip up to Chickasaw Country, which is in Oklahoma. So if you've been to Dallas, it's very flat, it's not a forested area. So let's say you want some nature, go up to Chickasaw Country, and they have a national forest there. It's free. They have all these beautiful clear water springs that you can swim in, and there's a bunch of them. And then because it's a forest, there's hiking. And then they've got zip lining. You can float a river. And if you're not comfortable with floating a river, don't do that. So
don't do it. If you don't want to, don't do it.
One of the things I always traveled with was a blow-up life jacket. So no matter where we went or what we were doing, I had blow-up life jackets in the suitcase because they fold down to almost nothing. That way, if we did decide to do something, I had a life jacket.
I was wondering, because, I see those moms with leashes. And I actually, for my 5-year-old, would rather like a blow-up life jacket because he's always trying to end his own life. And so I wouldn't mind putting him in some type of a straight jacket where, like, if he's running because he'll like run through the airport and then he'll find a ledge and then he'll catapult off it because I don't know if he like wants to break his wrist or it looks fun to have a cast. Like, there's not a ton of reasoning with him, but now that I know that there's such a thing as a blow-up life vest, you might just see no leashes. I'm not big into leashes, but I might just put my 5-year-old in a blow-up life vest. Sounds like a really good investment. Okay, so we've got the Florida, we've got Dallas. Let's say you're on the West Coast. I mean, the West Coast, God, there's so many national parks on the West Coast, right?
Yeah,
we haven't even tapped into that yet.
Yeah, I mean, from Vegas, you could pop up to Zion National Park. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, Utah's full of national parks. Boise, I think, is an amazing destination. It's super clean. There's a lot to do. Portland, Oregon is fantastic. I know it gets a bad rap in the news, but I lived out there a decade, and it is a stunningly beautiful area and just so much to do. And again, if you're on a budget, they have lodging to meet. I mean, they have hostels that you could stay at with kids. I mean, which sounds a little crazy, but it's just a really budget friendly area. So, and it's a huge foodie scene. And because they are so kid friendly, when I lived there, I took my kids to all the restaurants with me, like really nice restaurants, and nobody shunned us. Like it was no big deal. So you saw kids everywhere you went. I mean, California is great. I mean, there's beaches. I mean, you could do an easy beach vacation. I mean, sure, you might spend a little extra on the hotel, but then during the day, if you're just playing at the beach all day, then you've spent no money. So,
At what age would you recommend starting to take kids internationally, overseas, and where would you start?
I think a little bit of it depends on your kiddo. I think if your kids are younger, a really easy thing is just to pop down to Cancun and stay at one of the all-inclusive resorts. It's easy, it's fun, you can find really good deals. Usually airfare is pretty cheap to Mexico. Um, they've got kids clubs. I mean, it's set up for families. So I know some of the best times we've had is when they even had a teen club. So they might break it down into like something for the toddlers, something for the older kids, and then even the teenagers. So everybody's having a great time. I know one time we went to Aulani, which is the Disney property in Hawaii, and they had an amazing teen club, and they just had, and then they had all these family activities where you could do it together as a family. And so although the hotel was really expensive, once you pay for the hotel, it included all those activities. So I wasn't then paying for excursions. I wasn't paying to do more. It wasn't all inclusive, but it included a lot. So I would kind of tend to steer towards those when they're younger, just because it's just a lot less stressful when you're like in one place. I know the beaches resorts for little, if you've got toddlers, they've got the Sesame Street characters there. They've got an amazing program for younger children. So there's a lot of different types of resorts that are all in the Caribbean or in Mexico that will really accommodate.
So that's not intimidating. So someone like me, like I followed, Baby Wise and did all the sleep training. So for me, I love to be on a schedule, and it's impossible, right? With 3 kids, and all my kids are in youth sports. So getting them to bed at night, even on a regular weekday, seems like an act of Congress. But at the same time, I haven't wanted to take them overseas or even to places like Hawaii, which obviously is not an international trip, but at the same time it's very intimidating when you look at all the time zones.
Well, it does matter where you're flying from. I mean, Hawaii from the West Coast, that's an easy flight. Hawaii from Texas, where we live now, that was an all day ordeal. I thought, my gosh, we could have been to Mexico in 2 hours. We should have gone there, because it took 8 hours to get to Hawaii. So everything would have been easier on us if we just done a simpler trip. So I think once you want to go to Europe, look at how long is the flight. Like that'll probably determine what part of Europe you visit first. I mean, Turkey's going to take you 14 hours, but maybe you could be in Dublin in 7 to 8 hours. That's a lot less time on a plane. And I would say once your kids are old enough and can really handle a long flight, Asia's incredible. If you can find a good flight deal and go to Asia, once you're there, I mean, it's very cheap. So you're not going to spend very much money while you're there. Your main cost will be the airfare, but you do have to have a child that can handle that kind of flight, because Dallas to Doha is between 14 and 16 hours. And then depending on where you go out into Asia, you're looking at another 5, 7, or 8 hours. So one of our favorite places in the world is Sri Lanka, but that is not an easy place to get to. So my youngest, the first time we went, was he in 8th grade? No, he was in 7th grade. So he must have been 12 or 13. And it was too much flying, because it was like 16 hours and then 7 hours to fly. And it was too much. So really they need to be like full on teenage. They probably need to be in high school before you drag them to Asia, just because of the time change. Unless you're going to be there for a long stretch and the first day you just sleep. I know when we went to Australia, I made a goal for us. I'm like, okay, today we're going to try and stay up till 7 p.m. And then tomorrow we're going to try and stay up till 8 p.m. And then know that everybody's going to be awake. So think about, what can we do at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning? Well, you can go to the beach in Thailand at 7 a.m., 6 a.m. Nobody's going to stop you.
Okay, so a little bit of plan when what I'm hearing is, if you're going to be traveling some of these bigger time zones, is to have a rough plan. And then, like you said at the top, just give yourself some grace. Because I was thinking, like I'm in my head, I'm visualizing Australia and I'm visualizing Asia. And really, I was just thinking about taking the kids to London. Like that to me even was intimidating. And that really isn't that bad of a flight. I mean, if you think about it, you can it's probably equidistant to get to Hawaii than it is to get to London, right? I mean, they're just on opposite ways.
Yeah, I mean, London is a much shorter flight. That might be a great entry level into Europe. I will say though, they're on the pound, so it's
Yeah,
expensive. Everything's
very.
more expensive in London.
Okay, so let's talk about how you can keep prices down. Let's say we're in that older group now and you are starting to take more adventurous, you could say more adventurous trips, so longer flights, maybe international destinations, maybe you've graduated from Mexico and you're looking more towards Europe. How do you do that on a budget? Because, like I said, it starts to add up regardless of income, right?
You
These
can
are
add
a
up
lot of
really fast
breaks.
too.
It adds up fast. You pay for everything. You forget your water. You can't find a fountain. You pay $5 for a bottle of water. It
I
just
think
adds up.
I think that's why cruising has gotten so popular. It's amazing to me to see these mega ships sold out, sailing after sailing. But I think that's why. I think it's because you can do a bunch of different destinations. You don't have to change hotel rooms, and a lot of your food's included. Sometimes your drinks are included, and then depending on what you do off the ship, yeah, you're going to pay for that, or it might be included depending on which cruise line. But I think that's a big reason a lot of people are cruising so much because it is kind of budget friendly, to be honest. So
I know, but you know what? You're going to judge me too because after the whole Disney comment, I don't want to get MRSA. I really don't. I don't want to get MRSA.
I
How do
realize I've
how
cruised a ton. We've never gotten sick.
really?
Hmm.
Okay, so would you judge me? I judge cruising. I
It's
shouldn't judge cruising?
it's because you don't hit. You're never going to hear about all the ones that went right. Like when there's a cruising problem, that's when you hear about it on the news. It's always going to be something negative. So
Okay, so should I cruise with kids? Because right now I'm not
yeah,
cruising. I don't cruise. I don't want to cruise. I don't want to go to Disney and I don't
my
want to cruise.
my kids love to cruise. So my boys love to work out, and so they'll go to the buffet, then they go to the gym, then they go back to the buffet, then they go to the pool. Like they love cruising. Kids
Okay, what's your
love
favorite cruise?
cruising.
Tell me. I did not. Now I know. Now, I mean, but my 5-year-old doesn't work out. He just works out trying to.
It's okay. They'll have a kids club for him. He'll be in like the Lego room, or I was on a cruise ship that had a massive Lego room. I was on the MSC America, and it's a cruise ship that was built to sail in America for Americans, and it sails out of Miami. And their kids club I mean, it was extensive. They had it broken down by age, and they had an entire Lego room on board.
Okay, all right. So maybe in the next couple of years, I'll text you and I'll try Disney. We have been to Disney, by the way. And I will try a cruise, and then I will get out of my comfort zone and leave the Eastern time zone, which all of these things are going to take me a little. My poor kids living in a bubble, as I say, I'm going to put my 5-year-old in a blow up life. By the way, I'm googling that. I'm not. I'm not going to let that one die.
They're cheap too. They're like $6 or $8.
You know what? He needs to wear that to school. I mean, I'll get a nurse note a week. Well, I don't think he's got a concussion, but he fell really high and nobody saw it and whatever. So let's hear, before I let you go, I want to hear some of your favorite like secret destinations. I obviously, what I'm hearing is that international travel may not be as daunting as I think, and also I need to think about maybe going on a cruise. What else is like your maybe a little secret sauce that you want us to know or don't want us to know about where we should go and where we should travel?
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like because with the rise of Instagram and with the rise of influencers, nothing's a secret anymore. I feel like everything's discovered, but I
But you don't know
think,
what's real. You don't know what's real.
well, that's true. You know what? And well, that's a whole nother topic. I could really expand on that because I get I get a little frustrated because the average American family can afford one big trip a year. And it's not cool if an influencer has made a destination look way better than it was and they've spent their hard earned money to go there and it's not that good. I think
That
that's so unfair. So if I don't like a place, I'll just never talk about it. I'll never share anything. I'm not going to bash them, but I would never pretend that it's something that's not. So I, I think Whistler, Canada, if your family loves to ski, it's incredible. It's the cutest ski village on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia. It is stunningly beautiful. You can walk the whole area. You don't, your kids, they've got playgrounds. They even have when you ski on their mountain, they have playgrounds on the mountain and you can stop and your kids can play on the playgrounds.
I'm in.
Yeah, it's a really neat area.
What age should we start taking the kids skiing? I grew up in Colorado, and so my family's actually about to disown me because I haven't taken my kids skiing yet. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed because everything that I've shared so far with you is that I haven't really done anything.
Well, you know what? You just make that list, you know? Yeah, yeah, and you know what? You can have a lot of different experiences. I mean, America's huge, so what if they don't ski? Maybe they surf. I mean, there are lots of things that people can enjoy. We did just do. We've been to Vail and we've been to Beaver Creek, which is a very expensive destination, but again, very beautiful in the summer. Lots to do. Anytime you go to like a town where there's a mountain in the summer, they'll have a kids park up there with bungee trampolines. They might have an alpine slide. They might have, and that's usually just one ticket, and it includes everything.
You'd still do Whistler over Vail, though? I do love Vail. I love Vail.
So we used to live in Portland, so it was easy for me to drive 8 hours up to Whistler. It was a road trip for us. The biggest issue is getting into Canada. It's harder to get into Canada. It's a lot easier to get back in than it is to get into Canada sometimes. But
they're going to take my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, probably.
It's funny because that's the only country in the world. I have taken these kids everywhere, and the only country in the world that's ever said, "Do you have permission from their father?" was Canada.
No. Wait, since when do we need permission from their father?
You know what? I know some people worry about that. You can have like a letter signed and have it notarized. You can just go to a little local notary and get it signed, and then you can take them wherever.
Well, and I wasn't making fun of that. That's probably mildly offensive. I was really just making fun of my husband, which I do normally, but I wasn't making light of you. Right? I think Canada, you're very smart. You're protecting the youth, and I'm grateful for that.
Making sure I'm not stealing my own children.
Yeah, yes, I'm not. I'm sure my children would love to go to another mother. I hear that quite often, but they're stuck with me. Okay, so Whistler, and then I just think if you can give us one more of your sneaky favorite spots, and then I promise I'll let you go, and you can tell us where we can find all of your latest sort of tips and hacks and travel advice.
Gosh, another one of my favorite. I mean, I'm from Texas, so I love Texas. Austin, like the whole area between Austin and San Antonio, the hill country of Texas. I love to float the rivers. There's a massive water park out of San Antonio called Schlitterbahn, where river water flows into the rides. And so you have like some of the longest tube rides. You get on one ride and 30 minutes later, you're still on it. So I like that. I mean, you do have to stand in line, but once you're on it, it's a really good time. So I think any destination where there's like a whole mix of things to do is what I mean, we like to hike, we like to mountain bike. We'll do anything. So.
And then, of course, I think you'd be one to say that the best education you can give your kids is travel. You've been to how many countries, you said? Did you tell us that yet? Have I asked you that?
I think I've been to 38.
Wow.
Which is funny because sometimes people are like, "Oh, really? You're a travel writer? That's all you've been to?" I'm like, that's a lot of places. Like,
how many have you been to, sir, ma'am?
To be clear, this was also with children. Like, yeah, I probably could have been to a lot more if I didn't have the kids with me. So.
Yeah, we live in Georgia, and everyone's asked my son, "Where'd you go?" And he said Georgia, and I was like, "Well, we went in my defense, like we went to the beach." And he did Georgia, and I'm like, "No, like we travel, we're cool. I haven't been to 38 countries. You haven't been outside the country, but that doesn't mean I won't take you outside the country."
I mean,
okay,
there's so much to do in America. You don't necessarily have to leave. I do think that you should. I think it's great to get some perspective. I mean, we lived in Honduras for 6 weeks, and I tell you what, that was a very eye-opening experience. I've been to Sierra Leone, Africa. That was my first time finding out that there were fourth world countries. I had no idea. So that is an education. You can't teach that in a classroom.
Well, and I think about that sometimes because there's so much pressure. We went to my fifth graders conference, and they said, if you have doctor's appointments, make it after school. And then I wanted to take my daughter to Philadelphia to see her dad. He was working in Philadelphia, and we had to write a note, and it was unexcused. But I said, you're learning about the government. Yeah. What better place to go to than Philadelphia if you're learning about the United States, the birthplace of our democracy? And so you are trying to fit into the mold of, my kids have to go to school every day, but really there's other ways to educate them. I think you're living proof of that. your kids are older now, but would you tell parents like it's okay? It's okay to color outside the lines.
100%. So my kids have missed a ton of school and they're all in college. They're fine. So they're successful human beings despite missing tons and tons of school. I mean, that's a great way too. A lot of the educational opportunities in cities that you visit are completely free. So that's another great way to expand your travel budget. And they're learning at the same time. I know used to schools would let you like do a report about somewhere you've been. Nobody does that anymore. But it's still, and you can, before the trip, you could read a book about that place and you're learning, or you could watch a documentary on that place and you're learning, and then you go and do it and you see it and you experience it. And so that all adds up. It's very educational to travel.
So that's how we felt. So the school didn't ask, and we had her write her own permission note. Of course, it was canceled because my son broke his arm, but I already told you about my son. But we had her write, where she wanted to go, why she wanted to see the Liberty Bell, who were some of the big players, and why is Philadelphia so important. So we did all that. But you're right. I wish that there was more emphasis on just getting out. I mean, I know I should be preaching to the choir because I just told you that I won't take my kids outside of the state of Georgia. But I'm a work in progress. And like you said, you've got 3 adult or semi-adult children, right? And they were educated largely in and outside of the classroom.
Yeah, and I hope, I don't know what they're going to do in their careers. I think my daughter's going to become an international journalist, I hope. That's her goal. And it's not intimidating for her because she's been everywhere and she feels confident that she can do that. And so it instills a confidence and a knowledge that you just can't learn otherwise. So, and your kids are going to learn to be flexible, like when everything goes wrong and, where you get lost, but then you figure it out and you have teamwork while you figure it out. And there's so many things that as a family you can connect. And I feel like my kids are really close because they have had all these shared experiences together. And it is unusual. I mean, the typical kid hasn't had all those experiences. I remember my oldest son, when he was in college, he took like a world economics or something. And they're like, raise your hand if you've been to more than one country. Raise your hand if you've been more than five. He's like, did you know I've been to the most countries? I'm like, well, I would hope so.
Right.
And so he's 18 or 19 years old, and he was just then figuring out that he has all this knowledge and experience that he didn't realize he had that the others don't.
Well, Meagan, I'm grateful for you. We're going to put all your information underneath the episode. And thank you so much for joining us today. I am now inspired, and I will take them outside of the state of Georgia thanks to you. I appreciate you.
Thanks.